Notre Dame being ranked after going 0-2 to start the season. First time in the AP poll since 1988 that a team has been ranked 0-2. That was Michigan that year. I think this leads to a broader question about the AP poll and the validity. Obviously, it doesn't mean as much as it used to with college football playoff rankings coming after week 8. But definitely wanted to pose that question. Do you have a problem with Notre Dame being ranked 0-2? And do you have a problem with the AP poll in general right now?
Yeah, so I definitely think that you can go either way on this topic, right? I feel like a lot of the people who want to see Notre Dame not ranked are very passionate about the fact that they shouldn't have been ranked. I personally think that if you left them unranked, I wouldn't be upset. If you left them ranked, I wouldn't be upset either. They started as a top 10 team, specifically the number 6 team in the nation going to the preseason poll, and I thought that was it was a generous spot given the fact that they had a new starting quarterback, but still they were a national championship game qualified. They made it to the national championship game last year, and they're just an overall good team. They lost to Miami by 3 points off a game-winning field goal at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and then they played a tough Texas A&M team, which is now ranked in the top 10. Those are the only 2 games that they've played this season. I could see how you'd want them to drop out of the top 10, top 25. They're the only team that have ever gone 0-2 to start and then still be in the top 25. But based off where they started in the rankings and the teams that they lost to, it's 2 teams that currently stand in the top 10, and they lost them off a game-winning field goal and a game-winning touchdown. So it doesn't drive me angry seeing them in the top 25, and I think that they'll probably just win out anyway and remain firmly in the top 25 after this game.
Yeah, I think anything that happens in a certain sense, if this happens and you're 0-2 and you get ranked, it's because of some extremes. I probably could have said that better, but you get what I'm trying to say. The late game stuff against 2 top 10 teams, I think, is definitely worth mentioning. It's a nuanced kind of look at why this has happened, and it definitely is in part because of their preseason ranking being so high. If you had told me that they were unranked, I would have been fine with it. If you told me that they're ranked as they are, number 24, I think that's fine. I think it's unfortunate that a team like USF drops out of the rankings after their first loss, after getting 2 ranked wins. But Florida lost as well. And, how good is Boise State? There are some intricacies here. I know that the online opinion is definitely that they should not be ranked. And I get it. But, it's week 3, and there are a lot of teams that have only played an FCS team and 2 lower level group of 5 teams. So it's also tough to compare some resumes whenever you look at that. And I do think that there is something to be said about quality losses. If they were outside of the top 25, they would have made their way back in by week, 6 or something like that, or however long. And probably way earlier than that, if we're just being completely honest. Probably would have been 1-2 or 2-2. They probably would have made it in. I have a major problem with a lot of other aspects of the AP poll. It's less about what Notre Dame just got ranked and more about some of the errors that have occurred over the last few weeks that have honestly opened my eyes to how ridiculous this polling system, or just who is making the votes, is. And I talked about this with you a little bit before, but there was obviously that big thing that happened last week with an AP voter putting USF behind Florida after USF just upset Florida. That happened again now by 3 voters this past week, and there are 66 total voters, so less than last year, I believe, which was 250. There are less voters, so it does potentially impact some of these teams and where they are ranked. There was a voter now that did not honor the Vanderbilt South Carolina win, and she said basically it was because she was on the West Coast. She was working 25 out of 32 hours of the weekend, noticed her mistake 15 minutes after she did it, panicked, was like, this is going to be bad. It obviously didn't really matter because Vanderbilt's ranked, South Carolina's not, but she got called out. It is what it is. She made a mistake. Can't really have it, but that was her reasoning. There was another voter. He owned up to it just completely. He did the same thing, but he also made the mistake of ranking another team that beat somebody else, and that was Georgia Tech, and or not ranking a team that beat somebody, and that was Georgia Tech and Clemson. He had Clemson ranked, Georgia Tech outside of his top 25. So that didn't make any sense, but it still didn't impact it. You just can't have this. There was another one as well where they ranked Arizona State, didn't rank Mississippi State, also didn't honor the head-to-head between Florida State and Alabama, which just doesn't make any sense right now. And then that voter also had Notre Dame at 10. I've been going on a long rant here in my answer, but if there are too many people to count in the AP every single week that are making this isn't even subjective. You know what I mean? I get if you don't want to punish South Carolina because of the Lenora Sellers injury. But like, this isn't like, who do you have number one? Or like, oh, you have Penn State number one, or you have Miami number one, or LSU number one. This isn't like some subjective thing where you're trying to like, you have your own way of thinking about this. These are like tangible outcomes that you're ignoring. And I just don't think that this is good. I think it kills the credibility of the AP. And there's definitely something to be said about, it may not matter when it's all said and done because we're going to find a champion, but these ranked wins are counted as the season goes on. The college football playoff counts these as ranked wins when they look at what teams have done when they go have their meetings in week 8. Like, that's a big thing. And this also helps the perspective of certain, it adds to the perspective of certain teams. It's not good at all. And there's, I was going to bring up, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you talk and give your thing in a minute. I'm so sorry. This is the longest rant I've had, but there was another guy affiliated with the Pac-12 who had Ohio State at 5. And I've said, it doesn't matter who you have at 1 or 2, but Ohio State at 5, Florida State at 3. We need to have a conversation here. I like, that is pretty ridiculous. And obviously Oregon and Penn State at 6 and 7. So that didn't make any sense. Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me. Pac-12 affiliation, is he hating on the Big Ten? I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, but I was like, dude, way too many weird rankings to count.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized it pretty well. I think that part of it going into these rankings is not like for like the grand scheme of things, right? You mentioned it, like we're going to find a champion, but like also to your point that the college football playoff committee does look at these ranked wins, and it is important that when there is at least a head-to-head that you honor that. Like the fact that Georgia Tech could be ranked anywhere under Clemson at this point with 2 losses, and Georgia Tech being an undefeated team doesn't make any sense to me. I don't care if they're like, the AP poll rankings aren't supposed to be about like technically who's the better team, like fleshing that out specifically. It's about like if you get a win, even if you were the underdog, no matter like what the circumstances are, depend with limits to it, right? Like this isn't like a Georgia Tech team that was 0-2 coming into this game and was like a crazy underdog or whatever. Like this is a Georgia Tech team that was receiving votes the week before and came into this game at home as just only a slight underdog, and then took it to Clemson and beat them, like just beat them in like a really good game. So I don't really understand how you could have those teams flipped. And then same thing with South Carolina, maybe a little bit different because obviously we talked about the Lenore Sellers injury, and I get the concept of honoring that, but like at the same time, no. Like Lenore, how long is Lenore Sellers going to be out for? And Vanderbilt won like by a convincing matter. So like there is no point in saying, oh, we're going to honor the fact that, especially if you're going to leave them that high up. Like number 10 in the country is absurd for South Carolina after losing to Vanderbilt. I think that at the very least, the mistakes can't come in at a head-to-head fashion. You can have your opinions on where some people are going to be ranked, but like you have to honor the head-to-heads in college football, especially when it's not that drastic, especially when teams that are being like disrespected in this case are going to be undefeated.
And she admitted that she just simply thought that South Carolina won, but the other individual really didn't, just said, that's on me. That's probably not good enough, to be honest. And I don't think that there's a misconception within the college football community about who the AP voters are, but just in general, these aren't just news reporters who like don't cover college football and they get a vote. Like they're beat reporters, so they should know what they're doing, but also in the same breath, they are covering maybe one specific team or a conference, and they're not national. So they do kind of have to catch up a little bit, and they're so focused on one specific team. Definitely, in my opinion, just is a tough it's a tough thing for them to do. But if they can't rise to the occasion and actually fill out their ballot correctly, then I think we need another poll. And I think it has to be national, and it's got to be some of the bigger voices in college football. I think I would love the commentators to have a voice. There's a lot of different people that you can look to in sports media that have really good college football opinions that I think would be better if they made up a poll of all of those individuals instead. But I think I got everything off my chest when it comes to the AP poll. I think it's time. Man. Just another poll. Just another poll is best.